Okay, this is the Golden Wreath of the Golden series, and I want to talk about this banjo here in particular. Well, in banjo business, it's been an effort, for many banjo builders around the world, to try to duplicate some of the classic banjos in the 30s. And of course, every serious banjo, builder, has the attempt to make a good take on that. And of course, we did, extreme efforts to come up with a banjo that really captures some of the qualities and playability qualities, of these instruments that are so, well loved in traditional music and, and of course in other musics as well, but especially in traditional music. Because you expect a certain sound for some traditional, music, and this is why we worked extremely hard, on this instrument here in particular. First of all, the flange is a little bit lighter than a standard Deering flange, which gives the whole pot just a little bit of lighter appearance. The tone ring itself, we analyzed, like a lot of other people would too, but we also analyzed a lot of the tone rings. Now, the analyzing and the reproduction is a big deal, and I just want to say a few words about that. It is not, you cannot really pinpoint down a single formula for a tone ring that was, that pre-war formula or whatnot. It's not only the ingredients, it's how it's done. So it's not only an analyze, you don't not only analyze of what's in there in what relations, it's pretty much of, how many holes do you have in it, how is the process of the pouring itself in order, to have this kind of sort of, sound, because you could have different ingredients, and if you pour it in a different way, you will have a different result of the tone. So the tone ring itself takes quite some attention to really get a tone ring that does. You can take an old tone ring, and that's something that's typical for an old tone ring. You can hold it on your finger and you hit it, and it will sustain for an extremely long time. That's something that is very typical for an old good tone ring, because we have seen some banjos that were old, but they were not really what we thought really good instruments. But on the good ones, that we took apart and looked at, we noticed that the tone rings, would actually sustain a long time. And then when we analyzed these tone rings, we found that they would even, sustain on a similar length. They would not necessarily be having exactly the same formula. But we found that the way they are made were almost identical. So we worked with this foundry in Switzerland together, and with the analyzing department of the National Analyzing Department of Switzerland, the EMPA, and we worked with them together, and they could tell us not only what's in it, they could tell us exactly how it was made. And so we found the machinery is here in America that is still in use, that using exactly the same manufacturing process that was used in the early 30s for the same. And so then we cross-controlled them and looked at them, and this is what we came up with. And I have a few of these old rings at home, and if I take one of the new ones and I compare it, the way it responds, especially, they are very, very much like it. And I'm saying very much like it because if I would tell you they are exactly the same, it would be wrong, because they all sound different, but they all have a certain way of ringing long in low frequencies, and this is what this does too. So, and also the red maple, the rims and how they are made and put together, that's another big thing, of these rims, that makes them respond so well. This particular model is made out of mahogany, which gives you a really traditional sound. Earl Scruggs used, on his early recordings, mahogany. Later he switched to maple, and it's really a personal preference of what you like. The head tension, just to give you an idea here, is a G sharp now. So it's pretty much traditional. A lot of people would use that. The tailpiece we're using on this instrument is a little bit different than the original old banjos. This tailpiece actually is quiet, it doesn't make sound. You can find a lot of the original banjos and a lot of the sound gets actually absorbed into the tailpiece, which, you know, could be looked at as desirable, but I never thought it was desirable because you really lose a lot of tone. And so you can hear especially you see a lot of bluegrass players would judge the banjo about how the fourth string responds. And of course it does that really, really, really well. The banjo, where's my capo? I have a capo here. I could also, if you put the capo up, and I don't have spikes in it because this banjo was literally just put together, so you can see how well. When you look at the setup of Earl Scruggs' banjo in the early 50s or mid 50s, you can see that his tailpiece is not, you know, sticking all the way up. It's actually, you know, bent so it actually holds the strings firmly down, and the head tension is probably very, very tight, and the strings are actually very thin. Now, if you take a banjo and you play that into, let's say, an old ribbon microphone or a reproduction ribbon microphone, that doesn't translate a lot of the highs, you would get a very similar sound that Earl Scruggs had on his recordings. But later you see the microphones, they became more responsive to highs, and then Earl Scruggs also, you know, gradually, you know, would not keep his banjo head quite as tight, and would make the banjo sound a little bit more mellow than he used to have it in the 50s. And it's mainly, you know, because of the microphone technology that would translate so much more of the highs, you know. So I just always would like to say that, just to take into consideration by judging a banjo over a recording, because when you hear it live, it is always a little bit different. What we are especially proud of this banjo is that it's so amazingly clean. This instrument amplifies and records extremely well, like all the Deering banjos. But this is a really good traditional sound. It actually, a lot of people think, you know, that this is really an old banjo when they hear it, you know, some of the professional players. So give it a try, you know, play around with it. We're very proud of it, and a lot of people love it.